Well, for the first time ever, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram suspended President Trump's Twitter accounts yesterday. And now Mark Zuckerberg is saying in a post that, quote, "We believe the risks of allowing the president to continue to use our service during this period are simply too great. Therefore, we are extending the block we have placed on his Facebook and Instagram accounts indefinitely, and for at least the next 2 weeks until the peaceful transition of power is complete." Here to discuss is social media researcher, the director of the MIT Initiative on the Digital Economy, and also the author of The Hype Machine, How Social Media Disrupts Our Elections, Our Economy, and Our Health, and How We Must Adapt. Sanana Rall, live in Brooklyn, New York. Professor Rall, thank you so much for being here. President Trump has been spreading misinformation and fear on his social media accounts for some time now. From your perspective, is this block long overdue?
Well, I think it is. I wrote an article in October that predicted that this would happen. And I'm not the only one. Scientists and experts have been warning about this for months, if not years. And the reason is because the research shows that the information ecosystem is essential to things like this happening, because that kind of information spreading on social media motivates rioters and protesters. It helps coordinate rioters and protesters, and it provides social proof that other people are also going to engage in this, which legitimizes this type of behavior. We saw the coordination with the foiled kidnapping attempt of the governor of Michigan. This has been a long time coming.
So what is the role that tech companies should actually play here? Because there is this balance of making sure that the leader of the free world, as he is, does have access to their platforms, right?
Well, as far as I can tell, this is unique because, President Trump behaves unlike any other president that we've ever seen, unlike most leaders behave. But his remarks recently were particularly incendiary. They were not an attempt by a leader to create peace. They were stoking the fans, the fires, if you will. And I think that the block by Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is legitimate in this case. I do think that typically you want to err on the side of allowing speech to continue, but this is a case of violence. This is a case of a threat to the democracy, in my opinion. And I do believe that these blocks are essential.
But I'm wondering if the damage has already been done here. I mean, obviously the damage has been done. We saw the damage play out yesterday. How does this actually happen in real time? The message was out, and it was out there for hours.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we're not finished.
Yeah.
So as I predicted in October that something like this would happen, I believe what happens next is still critically important. What happens today, what happens tomorrow, what happens over the next 2 weeks leading up to the inauguration, and even potentially beyond. I don't think it's a case of everything is in the rearview mirror. I think we're at a critical moment, and I think that what we do next is essential. And I think that we're not quite out of the woods yet.
What role do you think social media played in the organization around yesterday?
I think it's clear that it played a very large role. I think it plays multiple roles. It plays a role in spreading misinformation that distorts the reality of people who are engaged in this kind of violence. It creates motivation. It enables coordination where people can message each other over this type of media in order to coordinate activities like this. It creates social proof that other people will join. Research shows, people who study the riot process have indicated in research that rumors are essential to riots because it motivates, it commits rioters to a certain line of action. It stokes fear, which then stokes reactions. It stokes camaraderie through social proof. All of these things contribute to any one person's decisions to join into something like this. And in my book, I detail exactly all of the large-scale research evidence that we have that indicate social media's role in protest movements, whether they're violent or peaceful.
So this is a big problem, and you lay it out in a really succinct way. But at the same time, it's a very difficult, and I think perhaps to some it would sound an insurmountable task for the platforms to get this under control. What recommendations would you offer Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg?
I believe that they need to have much more detailed and transparent moderation policies that they follow specifically. What they've been doing recently has been adaptive. In other words, we see a particular new line of information or a new tweet, and we're going to make case-by-case decisions based on this particular tweet, that particular tweet, or Facebook post or Instagram post. What they need is—
So there's sort of a delay.
Well, it's adaptive. It's reactive, I should say.
Okay.
What they need is a set of detailed policy, indications of how they're going to moderate content. They need to be transparent about that. And every time there's a debate about free speech versus moderation, they need to point back to that policy and say, we thought about this. It is well reasoned and thought out. This is why it falls under the rubric. I mean, if you remember what the New York Post Hunter Biden emails,
right.
Twitter changed its policy. It first, blocked, then it allowed, then it changed its policy to adapt to the choices that they'd made, and so on. That kind of policy is not sustainable. They need to think it out in advance. They need to consult experts. They need to make the policies transparent. They need to get comments on those policies. They need to enact and adhere to those policies going forward.
But what about when it comes to actually making sure that people don't use the platforms to organize things that are dangerous? Because that's a sticky situation.
Absolutely. I don't think that there's any room for allowing the organization of violence on any one of these platforms. That should be rooted out and banned, blocked. People who do that should be banned or blocked. And I think that is an essential part of maintaining public safety, which is a justifiable reason for content moderation on these platforms.
Sanana Rall, an MIT professor of IT management, marketing, and data science, also the author of The Hype Machine: How Social Media Disrupts Our Elections, Our Economy, and Our Health, and How We Must Adapt, joining us on Quick Take live from Brooklyn. Professor Rall, thank you for your time.
The biggest stories the moment they happen from around the globe. Subscribe to Bloomberg Quick Take now for insight in an instant.